What's up, guys? It's Benny. Yesterday, Tucker Carlson broke the entire internet by publishing this video. Who is Thomas Crooks? Where Tucker Carlson was able to finally shed some light on who the individual who nearly changed the course of Western civilization, started a civil war, I would argue, in this nation by putting a bullet through the head of President Trump, killing members of the MAGA movement, and then disappearing. The FBI told us that there was no footprint for this individual and that nobody has any further information about this mysterious young man who changed the course of Western civilization. Didn't maybe change it, did absolutely change it. I mean, actually, because President Trump responded so valiantly and bravely after the assassination attempt, so many more people voted for him. Elon Musk decided to endorse him, same with RFK. It coalesced all the energy and power of the 2024 election around President Trump, and things will never be the same. Anyway, it could have gone a totally different way, with 1 centimeter difference, of course, and President Trump would have been executed live on TV. So anyway, this has been seen by 5.2 million people at time of recording, 44,000 likes, 13,000 reposts, and a lot of people just saying, wait a second, like finally somebody is just trying to crack open this case as to who Thomas Crooks was, the man who changed the course of Western civilization. What Tucker demonstrated here is that Thomas Crooks was a very dangerous and violent young man, that while he did start off as a Trump supporter in 2016, he had a marked and dynamic shift in 2020, and that he had very mysterious engagements on the internet. He had a very mysterious interactions with people. All of these things were archived. He clearly must have been a person of interest. The FBI must have known who he was. The FBI then went out and lied and said that he was a far right-wing extremist when he had clearly gone hard left. Yes, he did support Trump in 2016. I don't think he was even voting age then. And then he broke and swung hard left and then talked about violence against government officials, President Trump, and so on. Anyway, I mean, they're just playing us as idiots by telling us that they have nothing more on Thomas Crooks. They do have a lot of evidence on Thomas Crooks. They just refuse to release it. And Tucker Carlson showing that it looked really bad from the FBI's perspective, because it seems like they're lying or withholding an enormous amount of evidence. They do have his phones. They do have his devices. They do have his chats. They do have his encrypted chats. They do have his overseas chats. They do have all the physical evidence. They do have all the blood samples. Why the cover up? Why are they keeping this from us? Well, the first time that the Trump 2.0 FBI has commented on Thomas Crooks by giving us a full-scale overview happened from Kash Patel because of Tucker Carlson's reporting. And I want to get through this, ladies and gentlemen, this post with Kash Patel updating the Crooks case overview. Let's begin, and we'll talk about what happens next. Over 480 FBI employees were involved in Thomas Crooks investigations. Employees conducted over 1,000 interviews, addressed over 2,000 public tips, analyzed data extracted from 13 digital devices. That's a lot of devices. It reviewed nearly 500,000 digital files, collected, processed, and synchronized hundreds of hours of video footage, analyzed financial activity from 10 different accounts, and examined the data associated with 25 different online social media accounts. I mean, this is a massive online footprint. It's a big online footprint. This is like as big as my online footprint. And I do this for a living, right? 13 digital devices, a bunch of social media accounts. The FBI's investigation into Thomas Crooks identified and examined over 20 online accounts. I mean, again, I don't have 20 online accounts. I just have my accounts online. So this is much larger, frankly, than even me, who does this for a living. Potentially, these are people that were coordinating with him or trying to influence him. This is sort of the illusion that Tucker Carlson gave. Data extracted from over a dozen electronic devices, examination of numerous financial accounts, and 1,000 interviews, 2,000 public tips. The investigation conducted by 480 FBI employees, that's a massive amount of manpower, revealed Crooks had limited online and in-person interactions and planned and conducted the attack alone and did not leak or share his intent to engage in the attack with anyone. Okay, so this has been seen by nearly 3 million people. It's got 8,000 comments, 3,000 reposts. So let's go ahead and check. What is the sentiment here? Tucker released more info than Crooks than y'all. Time for you to resign. Why hasn't it been released? Incredibly telling that you released this only after Tucker released his investigation. Why does it take Tucker giving us something disappointing? Okay, please share more information with the American people. That's kind of like the sentiment here. What's the over/under on Kash being out in a few weeks? I'm done with Tucker Carlson. Nobody trusts Kash. Okay, thank you, Tucker Carlson. All right. Anyway, okay, this is not like a dunk on everyone, video. This is just me reading sort of the sentiment. But let me explain. People are so tired of being lied to, whether it's January 6th, the Whitmer Fed napping, whether it's COVID, it's just a constant deluge of lies. And so there is a hole that has to be crawled out of for the new Trump administration. And it is still new. They haven't even been in office for a year. Most of them haven't been in office for 6 months, most of these directors. That lack of trust needs to be filled by major transparency, overly transparent. You have to overshare, right? That's the critical issue here. And so it's not like they've done anything wrong. From what I hear from my sources, the decision came from the top. That's just all I can say. The decision came from the top to not be out with all of the available evidence. Maybe that will change. But from my sources, there was a strategic decision made. And that's that. I'm not saying that's the right decision. I'm just saying it is what it is. But also the reality is that they have a massive public trust gap. That was created not by one administration, but by dozens of administrations lying about weapons of mass destruction, September 11th, lying about everything. Everything in modern memory has been a lie. And so is it an insurmountable task? I don't know. But for the people who have the job right now, you have to release as much, even if it seems mundane or benign or pointless, release it all. And let people know, that's how you actually establish more trust. So Kash says there is a lot of evidence. I say you just go out with it. There is no trial. Thomas Crooks is dead. We did cover this in the show, Tucker's revelations in the show. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is a piece of that just to update you as to sort of the difference here, right? Tucker did release a ton of new information that does, in my opinion, shed a lot of light on who Thomas Crooks was, a very violent, very disturbed young man who swung hard left. And it explains a lot of what got him to the point where he would put a bullet through the heart of America. Here we go. Who was speaking to Thomas Crooks? We finally have some evidence of who Thomas Crooks was online. Tucker Carlson, ladies and gentlemen, in his Bombshell report today, details and proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that he has the messages, the comments, the YouTube comments and user comments of Thomas Crooks. That Thomas Crooks had a extensive digital footprint, and that while he started off as a very dangerous and seemingly manic Trump supporter, he flipped on Trump in the year 2020 after COVID. Something terrible happened to Thomas Crooks. His brain broke, and then he began espousing violence against the right and the federal government. He did espouse violence against the left. He did make racist comments online. But something happened in the year 2020, a full 4 years before the shooting, where Thomas Crooks became a rabid, radical, and very violent leftist. Something extremely dark happened. Here we go. Tone switch.
On various occasions, Crooks openly said things like Mueller should be hanged along with the rest of the Democrats involved in that witch hunt. And I always believed being patriotic was lining up a bunch of socialist Jews, like the ones who booed Trump, and blasting their useless brains out with an AR. And yet in early 2020, Crooks seemed to change radically. On January 23rd of that year, he referred to, quote, Trump's stupidity. He began to mock the concept of the deep state. He suggested it was a code word used by Trump supporters for, quote, anyone who disagrees with the right wing. Suddenly, he sounded like an MSNBC commentator. In February of 2020, he called out Trump supporters as, quote, too brainwashed to realize how dumb you are. I mean, literally, you guys sound like a cult at times. That same day, he called Trump and his supporters, quote, racist. It was an amazing transformation. That April, during the peak phase of the coronavirus lockdowns, Crooks wrote, quote, it seems that you people don't understand that sometimes public safety comes before your personal rights. Are you not willing to quarantine one member of your family to save the rest? If so, you are not a patriot and you aren't protecting anything. Around this time, the new left-wing version of Thomas Crooks became very critical of conservative media. He said at one point, quote, "Going to a Chinese New Year's party in America isn't putting you at risk for coronavirus, because, believe it or not, viruses don't spread through race like Tucker Carlson probably told you." That May, as state officials across the country overhauled election systems to promote mail-in voting, Crooks attacked Republican concerns about voter fraud as, quote, "ignorant." 4 months later, in August 2020, his tone had shifted even further to the left. He said, quote, "I believe the outcome will be irrelevant." In response to the same video, Thomas Crooks issued what sounds a lot like a digital manifesto. Quote, "In my opinion, the only way to fight the government is with terrorism-style attacks. Sneak a bomb into an essential building and set it off before anyone sees you. Track down any important people or politicians, military leaders, etc., and try to assassinate them. Any sort of head-to-head fight is suicide, and even ambush or surprise attacks likely aren't going to end well."
Okay. Thomas Crooks broke hard left during COVID. There are many people who had their brains broken by COVID. What Tucker Carlson's reporting here proves is that Thomas Crooks was a violent person who had very dark thoughts about attacking members of the government, whether they are members of Congress, the president, or federal law enforcement. That is the theme. Whether he was supporting Trump or whether he was turning on Trump, whether he was attacking Trump, and he eventually led to him trying to murder Trump, hitting President Trump in the head with a bullet. That is a consistent and present theme in just one of his social media accounts. Tucker uncovered over a dozen social media accounts. All of them have been scrubbed. But then there's something very concerning. They all go dark when a very mysterious account that seems to be of a foreign user tied to some very radical groups, very strange groups, violent groups, terrorist groups, contacts Crooks. What happens in these scenarios is there are forces in this world, and I'm not going to suggest who was behind this, but when you see someone like Thomas Crooks online, you groom him. You see the rage and the anger inside of this young American. You see them outwardly projecting this, a call and a cry for help. And if you are a dark enough and sinister enough force, then you take them under your wing and you begin to manipulate them. You begin to control them. You can channel that rage and that anger into a real world result. And that is what I believe Tucker is getting at here. And that is also what I believe the current FBI and the Biden FBI is covering up. Here we go.
At that point, a new character emerged into the conversation, a user named Willie Tepes, who started pressuring Crooks to commit violence. For example, quote, "If a gun and a badge is all that is needed, then authority obviously comes from the barrel of a gun. We have more guns than they do. There is no way we can avoid a war at this point, so you better just get used to the idea. We have nothing to lose and everything to win. And the alternative, a global police state, is unacceptable. Nothing in life is simple, but that is no argument against doing it." So who is this Willie Tepes? Unfortunately, we don't know. The FBI hasn't made any mention of him in public, although they certainly know he exists. Just days after the shooting, somebody screenshotted Tepes' YouTube account page, despite the fact he had very few followers. To the extent that he can be traced online now, you can find his username being used on a foreign Antifa website. Those sites link him to the Nordic Resistance Movement, which has been designated a terrorist group by the U.S. State Department. That's all we know. We do know, however, that Crooks' online footprint abruptly ends after his encounter with this mysterious figure, Willie Tepes. Regardless of whoever Willie Tepes is or was and what his motives may have been, who he may have been working for, there is no doubt that Crooks was ripe for recruitment by someone.
Tucker goes on to say that the behavior of the FBI after the murder of Corey Comperentor and the shooting of President Trump is strange in the extreme. That they scrubbed all available evidence, never allowed for an independent toxicology report, cremated the body instantly, power washed the roof. They accessed Thomas Crooks's phone almost immediately. Were able to get inside of it and were able to uncover a treasure trove of messages, documents, searches, and potential co-conspirators. All of this evidence is available at Quantico, including, hopefully, preserved biological evidence, spinal fluid, blood samples, brain tissue samples. All of these things you would assume would be preserved by the FBI. Have they been? Let's watch.
The shooting, the FBI sent Crooks's phone to the Bureau's laboratory at Quantico, Virginia. Agents there were able to open it in less than 40 minutes using technology from an Israeli tech firm called Celebrate. According to the Post, FBI officials who served under President Joe Biden accessed Crooks's phone, computer, and his encrypted messaging apps in Belgium, New Zealand, and Germany. Yet none of the online activity the FBI has discovered was referred to in any way in the final congressional report that was released in December of 2024.
By the way, why do we still know nothing about that guy in Butler? What's going on?
That was a good question, a question that most people thought would be answered by the new administration. Within weeks of retaking office, Donald Trump told the New York Post's Miranda Devine that he had, quote, ordered the Secret Service on Friday to provide him every bit of information about his two would-be assassins.
You've had 2 assassination attempts. One, obviously, where you got hit by that bullet in Butler. There's a lot of frustration that we still don't know about that shooter in Butler. And we don't know about his communications. We get stonewalled all the time asking questions about it. Is there frustration on your part? Will we get transparency? Will we know the bottom line story?
It's very interesting because we have great people. I think Pam is incredible. I think Kash is incredible. And they're doing a great job. They're being recognized as doing a great job.
But you're the president. Can't you find out?
No, I know. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is.
But his people insist there's nothing there, and they don't seem interested in finding out more.
But there is something there. There has to be. Because even in this very short expose, it's about 30 minutes long, and the major new information brought to bear were some new videos of Thomas Crooks, pretty benign videos of Thomas Crooks. Some videos of him dry firing his firearm and some just other weird stuff. But really it's the YouTube comments, the comments of Thomas Crooks that paint the picture of a very radicalized and violent and dangerous young man who made constant and consistent threats against the federal government. Sometimes in favor of Donald Trump, against Trump's enemies, but then shifting rapidly against President Trump and his supporters. And then the FBI lies. That's what's so remarkable about all this, and why Kash and Dan must act on revealing who Thomas Crooks truly was. Because the FBI went before Congress, and the former assistant director of the FBI said that Thomas Matthew Crooks was a right-wing radical. Christopher Wray went before Congress and questioned whether Donald Trump was even shot at all. Maybe it might have been a piece of glass, says Christopher Wray. The FBI literally hosed down the building the day after the shooting. This is not normal for the FBI. The FBI doesn't do crime scene cleanup. What the hell is going on here? Why have we never seen any blood samples? Why have we never seen any tissue samples? Why have we never seen any toxicology reports? Why don't we know anything about Matthew Thomas Crooks, what drugs he was on, who was controlling him, what was inside of those devices, who was he talking to before he shot Trump? How did he know every single security vulnerability on the building? So obtuse was his movements that day that hundreds of Trump supporters filmed him from their cell phones in their lawn chairs. Tucker saying, listen, this is clearly an inside job by the federal government. Here we go.
The reality is that the FBI, as of today, is not only stonewalling, but is actively preventing an honest look at what happened in Butler. Within days of the shooting, FBI agents collected all the relevant surveillance footage. That includes footage from local businesses, the state police, and critically, the gun range where Thomas Crooks trained. Did he train alone? We don't know, because to this day, the FBI refuses to release the footage. They confirmed it exists. They confirmed the existence of one gaming account, and then publicly said a few days later the account wasn't real. Was that incompetence, or are they lying? Within a day of the shooting, the social media companies that hosted Crooks's comments took his accounts offline. In some cases, the records of those comments in the Internet Archive were also erased. Did the FBI order that too? What we do know is that on the day of the attacks, Thomas Crooks got extremely lucky. Miraculously lucky. After he arrived at the Butler County Fairgrounds on the morning of the shooting, Thomas Crooks conducted surveillance by flying his drone over the rally site. He flew that drone for 11 minutes. It just so happened the Secret Service's anti-drone system were down at exactly the same moment. What are the odds?
That's something I can't square. You really want to know who's protected by our federal government? Who are the people that are really running things? You need to ask the question, who and what can't I criticize?